Hello there, good people. It's Johny-J here, and welcome to another episode of the 3C Show. And we're a little bit earlier this week, thank God. And this week on the show, we're going to be talking about landscape compositions. You know, that one thing we all struggle and strive to get, those perfect compositions. And today, I've got a couple of mates here helping me out, a couple of awesome landscape photographers in their own right. I'll bring in my good mate on the left here, Mr. Brent Mail. How are you, my good friend?
I'm great, Johnny. Sorry, I just had a little bit of feedback there. I think it was I had the YouTube channel on too, so I just turned it off. And if I do look this way, it means I've got another screen happening here. So I'm just, just excuse me if that happens.
Oh, good, mate. Welcome to the show, mate. And Brent is over at shareinspirecreate.com. So, yeah, awesome, man. All right, and I've got my other good mate here, Mr. Shane Russell. How are you, Shane?
Good, mate. Good. How are you? Hi, Brent.
Good, mate.
Hey, Shane.
So,
man, you're rocking those headphones, eh?
I know, man. Look at those. Yeah, and with the Metallica shirt on. Look, he's hardwired for self-destruction. Look out. It's going to be a wild one. So, as my audience may know, I've been struggling with a few health issues. So we're trying these live streams. I'm getting the brains trust together to help with content. And I think live streams are going to be the way to go. I'm super excited. Let us know if there's any issues with the audio, guys, or the picture or anything like that. So we're just going to have a quick discussion about compositions, because I know it's like, boys, it's one of those things, right? You can teach, and Brent, you've been doing this for 10 plus years, mate. It's easy to teach the settings. It's easy to teach, the camera skills. It's easy to teach how to scout. But then when it comes to composition, it's just something that just takes time, mate, doesn't it?
It does, and it's something that I taught a class on it. So I actually went really deep into compositions to figure out, like, when often you look at an image and you just like it and you don't know why.
Yeah.
And that's and it's normally because of the composition, the lighting, the whatever other compositional elements are in the image, and that's what draws you in, and that's what makes it so powerful, so emotive. So it's compositions, one of the, probably I'd say it's one of the most important photography things to learn when it comes to landscape photography. It's quite easy to learn the basics, but then after the basics, it's all about composition, really.
It is. And once you sort of get to that place where you're comfortable with your camera, you're comfortable with your lenses, you can do your scouting, you then get to unlock this thing that's this creative, I don't know, it's just this creative inspiration that gets you out there, that gets you motivated, and composition is a big part of that. Shane, mate, I still, to this day, when I get out there with your brother, you'll just walk up to a scene and just dot along and put your camera down, and all of a sudden, boom, there's your composition, mate. Like, it is years of trial and error, isn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah, it is. And it's just practice, I suppose. You get the picture home and you might think, oh, well, that's just totally wrong.
Yes.
And you might just go back to that same spot again and try again, and you might nail it. It's just about trial and error, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. Yeah. It is trial and error, and it's like anything in life. And I always say this. If you're going out and you find the thing, and we'll talk about the main subject and how that sort of starts this discovery of your composition. But you find that main subject, and then you build in your other elements around supporting that main subject, and then that means you're out there shooting with a purpose. You've got a purpose to get your camera out, a purpose to take the photograph, and then when you get home and you get it on your computer, and all of a sudden something that doesn't work, your supporting elements aren't in the right place, or you didn't hit the light at the right moment, or something like that. You then can easily break down the reasons why your main element isn't being, or your main subject isn't being supported by those supporting elements. Does that make sense? So if you get your camera out with a purpose, when you get home, it makes it easier to try and figure out why the composition didn't work.
Yeah, and also what caught your eye in the first place. Why did you actually take your camera out in the very first place? And Johnny, I've been shooting with you, and we've been all over the world together, and sometimes you see it and I don't. Like, your brain works quicker than mine, I think, for some reason.
It's not at the moment, mate. It's just this.
Maybe because you're doing 20 things all the time.
Usually.
And I only do one thing at a time. But you'll go somewhere and you'll be like, there it is, and you're off, and you got the lens on, and you're getting low, and you're getting around your subject, and you're shooting it. And I'm still looking around, just like, okay, where am I? What's grabbing my attention? How do I feel? And how do I capture this feeling that I'm feeling right now? And yeah, that's so some people are really quick and some are slow, and I actually prefer to be slow. I prefer to slow down a little and just feel the scene more before I even grab my camera and start, moving around and taking pictures.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, it's this, and that's the beauty about landscape photography. By the way, there's 23 people out there watching us, so big hello to everyone. If you do have a question along the way, just put a capital Q at the beginning of your question, and it'll just make it easier. The comments are popping in now, but welcome everyone. Thanks for your comments. But if you do have a question, just put a capital Q, and that'll make it easier for me to figure out where the questions are later on. But where was I, Brent? That's that brain fog kicking in again.
Yeah, it's getting a bit late, and like I said to Shana, that like this time of the night, I'm getting ready for bed, so my brain's shutting down. So I'm gonna have to. Well, you're gonna have to keep me going, guys.
Yeah. So yeah, trial and error, no doubt. It takes time. It's something you got to get on the bike and do a lot. I think a great way that's really helped me is whatever place you go to view photographs where you get your inspiration from, whether it's communities or online, I find that if you can understand why that composition appeals to you, why you stopped at that photograph, why you stopped scrolling and looked at that photograph, what is the one thing that made you stop? And usually that's the reason why the photographer stopped to take that photograph, if it is an appealing photograph. And then you work back from that. Okay, so that's the one thing I think why this photographer stopped. And these are the other things that the photographers put in the frame or built around that one thing to support it, to make a strong composition. And I find, just breaking photos down that appeal to me, it is a really great way to discover composition.
Yeah. I think so too, and that's kind of how I learned photography 20 odd years ago, was looking at images that I liked and then trying to reverse engineer what the photographer was thinking and how they shot it, all the settings and everything. And often this is before social media, and it was not easy to get hold of people, but I would actually email the photographer or message them and say, what lens we're using, because it wasn't available, all that information.
Yes,
you could see the image, but you couldn't get any of the EXIF data yet. And often they would get back to me and say, look, I was using a 400 millimeter lens with a fast shutter speed, and that's how I got that shallow depth of field, whatever they're doing. And that's how I learned, reverse engineering things. So I agree with you, Johnny. Finding something that grabs your attention and then trying to figure out, what the photographer was thinking and how they shot it. And then, just putting that back in your brain somewhere, so that one day when you're out in the field, you're like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I can use that technique, or maybe I have leading lines that I want to incorporate into this image to lead my viewer to the main point of interest, or maybe that sign, that big yellow road sign in the background, maybe I should move it a little bit and put the cactus in front of it so that you don't see that and get rid of that distraction.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you found that with our little group. Shano runs a little, almost like it's like a little weekend workshop with Shano, I reckon. He organises the groups of photographers together, and you found that with people that come out with us often, asking you loads of questions about things and asking you about composition, haven't you, mate? And that sharing of knowledge that Brand has said, and it's so much easier now with online tools, but that sharing of knowledge is it's key, isn't it?
It is, and we're all there probably to help each other. Like it's there to get the best out of that scene or that morning or afternoon.
Yep.
So it's if each of us can help someone get a better shot than what they thought they would have got when we were there, then that's great.
That's it.
Yeah,
it's really something powerful of being able to get that feedback live when you're on site. That's amazing through workshops and groups like we've got, but also having somewhere where you can get that honest feedback about your photos and not just mum giving you a thumbs up on Facebook which is lovely. I love getting a like from my mum on Facebook. It's great, but it's it doesn't. If I ask mum, every photo I've taken from the last 20 years has been amazing. So that doesn't.
Yeah. And hey, Johnny, can
mate.
I mention something? I was just thinking back to, remember we ran that workshop in winter, June, before we all went into lockdown here in Australia. And the one day I took everyone up to Mungo Brush to see the dingoes, or half the workshop people. And on our way back, we stopped in at Tea Gardens, where there's this jetty going out and all these pelicans and seagulls on this jetty. And everyone stepped out the car, and I said, okay, guys, so here we are. There's like a lot happening in the scene. There's maybe 20 pelicans. There's maybe like 30 seagulls. How are you going to shoot this? And a lot of people just looked at me with a blank look, like, I don't know. What do I go wide? Do I, take a long lens and isolate one subject? Like, what do we actually do here? And that's often where a lot of us start. You get to a place and you're just overwhelmed with there's too many things, too many elements, too many compositional elements in the scene. So what do we actually do? And it was really interesting because I just sat back and I watched, and then I kind of nudged a few people to, like, oh, you got the long lens. What are you going to focus on? Well, I'm thinking I'm going to focus on that flamingo, or that flamingo pelican.
Flamingo.
Yeah, it's getting late.
It's getting late. That was the shoot you did after those couple of beers.
Yeah.
Flamingo.
Yeah. I'm going to focus on that one. And I said, okay, you're going to focus on that one. And they started shooting. And I said, well, have you thought about maybe just getting a little bit lower? And they looked at me like, why? I said, well, you can use the jetty as a leading line. You can get lower, and then you can also change the background if you just get a little bit lower. Oh, yeah, okay, got lower. Boom, better shot. Okay, have you thought about going to your right a little bit? The light's coming from the side, and maybe that's a better shot. So I think a lot of new photographers, especially even old ones, get overwhelmed with too many choices when you get to a place. And like I said earlier, my suggestion to that is to just slow down, like maybe put your camera away, just sit and just watch and just take it in and look for different elements and what's grabbing your attention in the scene. And then decide, okay, like what lens, how do I want to shoot this? Do I want to add any extra things to lead my viewer to the thing that's got my attention right away? And then how do I get rid of all the distractions in the background or the foreground? So anyway, that's just my...
Yeah, no, that's a really good example. Right. We've got heaps of questions coming in, and Jane mentioned that she didn't even get one decent shot from that morning, mate. So. But hey,
yeah, well, we didn't see the dingoes, unfortunately. But I was hoping we would. But I've seen them since then. So just,
awesome, man. It's funny you say that, because just the other morning, I think it was 2 weekends ago, me and Shane said we would have gone and taken like 15 compositions by now, and we hadn't even got the camera out at that stage. We're still standing there chatting, just watching the light. So there is something about just taking your time and slowing down. And that's the beautiful thing I love about landscape photography. You're on a tripod. You just get in your own little world. Just enjoy it, slow down, and just take your time and pace yourself. And that really is the key, And I think that comes back to, we can wind that back a little bit to scouting and preparing, before you go. Like, there's lots of things to think about, sun direction, what the weather's doing. I know we're affected by tides and swell, and and places are obviously thinking about seasons and considering all those things in your scouting before you get on location. There's so much we could go through with that, but that is part of before you even get boots on the ground, particularly if it's a place you haven't been to before. I always say, if you're going to go for sunrise, get there the afternoon before, run around with the kids or the wife or whatever it is, the husband, and scout around, and even have your camera just slung over your shoulder. Some people need to visualize compositions through their camera, and that's totally fine. It's different for everyone, because we're getting into an area of photography that is pure about creativity. Everyone gets to that place in a different way. For Brant, it might be, I need to swim in the ocean and then go for a little walk and then sit on the rock for half an hour, and then I can finally get my camera out and decide what I'm going to do. For me, it might be I have to put on some hip hop and get amped up, have 2 coffees in the morning, and then I'm right when I get there. For Shano, it might be he just pulls up, has a chat to everyone, pulls his camera out, and then goes home with a killer comp. So everyone gets to that place in a little different way. Yeah. What do you reckon, Shane? What do you think about scouting? I mean, you're a big. It's great actually. The mornings I go shooting with Shane because he just texts me a location, and then I just turn up because he's done all the hard work. He's checked the cloud cover, checked the weather, checked the sun direction. Yeah, so it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty onto it when it comes to all that stuff. But it's all. I think the sun direction's a pretty strong thing. I think to location. Especially if you want nice light on, say, something you've got in the foreground or anything like that. And yeah, it's just weather-wise, really, and just that sort of makes my decision on where we're going to go and what time of year we go to a certain spot. And
I noticed one thing that you consider a lot too, mate, is the wind direction. And you told me the other day, it's going to be windy if we go there, and it's mainly because of your personal. Not safety, but your personal feeling, like it's going to be windy and ugly to be in a location, then, you chose a different location based on that. So if you're comfortable, having the right, gear on yourself, that makes a big difference being in the field, and making the decisions like you did. Like, we go to this headland because it's out of the wind. Just little things like that can really change how you feel when you've got the camera out in the scene. And it's funny, those things will build into your composition as well. I know it sounds totally random, but if you're not there with that right mind and sort of that right, feeling good about where you're at, then, you're going to struggle anyway. And Brent, I know you're a big believer in this, mate.
And that's a good point you made, Johnny, about safety and about, being aware of what's about to happen. There were many years ago when I traveled with the family and I got into trouble crawling down these canyons, really slippery rocks and everything, to try and get this composition that I could see from the up at the top where the railings, and they had all these signs, don't go down there, it's slippery, many people have died, all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'm gonna go down. I grew up in South Africa. I don't worry about rules, like I'm gonna go down there and I'm gonna get that composition. And it was like later in the evening up in Queensland, long days, but there's no one around. And I went down and I was in this great spot and I was getting all these different compositions and I was shooting long exposure and had a rock in the foreground that I wanted to be my main point of interest, with the water going around it, the white water kind of framing it. And then it started drizzling. And I'm like, okay, maybe I should head back up. And I put everything back together, put my tripod back together, got my backpack on with all the camera gear and everything. And I couldn't get out. Like I would walk and slip back and walk and slip back. And then I started trying to crawl and I was just slipping down like the rocks. I couldn't actually get out of this gorge, and it started raining a little bit hard. And I thought, okay, yeah, maybe the signs were there for a reason, hey? maybe I shouldn't be in here. And I was down there with like no signal. I couldn't call anyone, no mobile coverage and everything. And I thought, I'm an idiot. Like, why am I here? And why am I about to die or get
for a photograph
badly injured for an image? It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So I took my tripod and I screwed the little legs up. So you got those little spiky things, and I managed to use those and hit them into the rock and like drag myself forward on my belly, laying on my camera bag and kind of like pulling myself forward. And I managed to crawl out to this ledge where it wasn't as steep, and I managed to walk out. And I thought, geez, I'm an idiot. I'm one of those people who just die, like one of those stupid people who like, they told you and you died. So it's not the moral of the story is not worth dying for an image.
For sure.
It's definitely not. So think of safety, and think of the safety of others too when you're out there photographing. Don't be one of those people getting a selfie on the edge of a cliff and fall off and you hurt someone or whatever. It's not worth it.
Yeah, totally not cool. The other thing when it comes to scouting and you're preparing either, a couple of hours or an hour before sunset or the day before sunrise is I always like to have like sort of the main composition, I would call it. Maybe it's towards the sun or maybe it's slightly side lit, depending on, your subject or what's the thing that's caught your eye or brought you to that location. But it's always good where you can to have a backup composition. I don't know. Like sometimes you get out there and the wind's blowing and the clouds are moving quick, and you're like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Then you turn around and all the clouds are blowing past you, and you need a composition behind you because all the clouds behind you just lit up. So it's always good to find yourself that backup composition wherever you can. I always recommend that. So
yeah, and I say be open to anything. Sorry, Shane, you go ahead.
No, I was saying I'm always looking, even though I'm I've picked a spot. I'm always looking around at the same time while I shoot that photo. I'm always looking for something else, just in case that one doesn't work, or in case the light changes, or I'm always looking for something else at the same time while shooting.
Yeah. That's actually a really good tip, because once we get there and we've done our scouting and we know where we're going, we put down our tripod and we set up our composition, we know what the sun's doing and the light's coming up, and we get focused on this little, I call it like you get stuck in your little 3-foot world. I've been watching this SEAL team show, and they always say, work the problem and don't worry about anything out of your 3-foot world. And I'm like, yeah, that feels like what it is when I was learning. And it's funny, it's a good show, by the way. SEAL Team, there's 5 seasons on Stan if you're into it. But anyway, it's really cool. But anyway, he talks about his 3-foot world, and I feel like that's what we like when we learn photography. We get stuck on the back of the camera and we forget to put our head up, take a breath, and look around, because it could be, something's never alone danger. I know I just turned away from the mic, so that's not really handy. But it could be, the clouds are lighting up behind you, or something's going on in a different direction that need to keep your what am I trying to say, Brent? Be aware of your surroundings. That's it. That's what I was trying to say. There totally it is. There's that brain fog.
And there's a question there from Natalie Fran Poole. She says, how do you get the pace to slow down if the light is changing quickly? And what I'd say to, is it Natalie or is it Natalie Fran? Just Natalie.
Just call her Nat.
Nat. I would say it's very important that you slow down and you're not stressed by brushing, because the image you create when you're out there is going to remind you how you felt when you took it. So even if you get a great composition and everything's perfect, when you look at it in a year's time or 20 years time, you're going to feel stressed because that's how you felt, because you're rushing.
Yep.
So it's really important that you do slow down and maybe get there earlier before the light starts changing quickly. Have half an hour, whatever, to walk around and check out the place before you even pull out your camera, because it's really important that you do get into that like meditative state, or just into that flow state where you're relaxed and you're not thinking too much and you're feeling more. I think that's more important than actually rushing to get that shot.
And I think a lot of that has actually got to do with getting to know your camera. So not going, oh, how do I do this? This thing's not set. So at home, you could be setting your aperture at f8 or f11 because you're probably going to shoot with your wide angle lens more than likely, because you've scouted the location. You could have your ISO set nice and low. You could have your 2-second timer on. Make sure your batteries are charged. Like all these little things, each one of those little micro things that we do, it takes away from that stress and allows you to just concentrate on what's happening around you and finding those compositional elements. And then it's just a matter of, maybe changing your shutter speed as the light changes and taking your frames, or doing your auto exposure bracketing while changing your shutter speed. Just learning those little techniques and little tips, little things that you can do to prepare yourself before that time comes without feeling rushed. Because exactly what Brent said, if you're out there and you're feeling anxiety or you're feeling rushed about your photography, you're taking something that you're meant to love and something that brings you joy, and you're adding negativity to that. And as soon as you do that, you're going to find your photo journey goes like this. It happens to everyone. I'm in the middle, so I've got to put it in front of my face. It happens to everyone. We all go through it, but you'll find what'll happen is you'll get this little bit of a slump and your creativity will be gone for a while. And it's because you're putting that negativity on your photography. And it's funny. It can be just the little things, the feeling rushed, like, oh, I didn't get it, or my tripod was wrong, or whatever it was, and just beating yourself up about that thing and adding that negativity and that negative feeling. And then, the rest is history, as they say.
Stress kills creativity.
It does. It sure does. Yeah. And coffee makes you awesome. Like, Shane's drinking coffee now. Good on you, brother. Too good. Actually, we've got a few other questions. We answered that one, so let's bring up another one. What was it? Do questions?
Yeah.
Here we go. Here's one. Here we go.
While we're on the Linton, hey, there we go. Do you consider the rules, thirds, leading lines, etc. during your composition, or only after you view the result? Who wants? Shana, you answer that.
I'll go. Yeah, I'll go. I look at that straight away before the photo is taken, and probably while setting up the photo, I probably look for like a good foreground or leading lines, and then on the back of my camera, I always have the rule of thirds up on the screen, and I live view, and I kind of just, then I place it all where I want it to be. Yeah. So, I sort of look at that first before I even take the shot.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's part of that journey of finding the thing that got your camera out first, whatever the main subject is, the anchor point, the main element, and then building out everything else around that. So what we're trying to do is, usually the main thing is a bit further back in the scene. Normally, if you're shooting with landscape photography and a wider angle lens, okay, we're not so much talking about shooting telephoto lenses, but when you're shooting wide angle. So what you're trying to do is, from that point, whatever I add into my scene is only going to support that main thing that made me get my camera out. Okay. And that's easy. And then that may mean leading lines, things that you're trying to get your viewer from where you are to that thing that made you get your camera out. Okay. And sometimes that means that we use light and dark areas to get our viewer's eye to move through the scene to that place. Sometimes we use color, so saturation or different colors of reflections to get us to that space. Sometimes we've got physical leading lines of jetties to get us to pull our eye through the scene to that place where we want people to rest, that anchor point or that main subject. Sometimes we use texture. Texture can be a thing. We can have rocks going out like stepping stones, and then we shoot along exposure and it'll be nice and smooth, and that texture between those two different areas, even if that's black and white, is going to lead your eye out to that main subject. So all of those become really important. And when you got your camera and you're trying to find a composition, and this is one thing, I'm going to stop talking in a minute because I just want to get this one thought out because it's really important. It's funny, your eyes and your brain play tricks on you, okay? You probably don't realize it, but I know my brain plays tricks on me all the time, especially at the moment because I'm just in this cloudiness are always around me. But so your eyes are really good at excluding things out of whatever's in front of you and make you focus on the awesome parts of something, okay? Where our camera is crap at that because we put our wide angle lens on and it captures everything and it sees everything. And I don't know how many times I've heard, people learning photography go, it's not what I saw. This is not what I saw when I was out there. And that's for that very reason. Because what happens is, you're looking at something and you've got your blinkers on and that's the only thing you see. You open your camera out and all of a sudden there's a big branch sticking in and some weird thing over here that we didn't see. And we've got these distracting elements in our scene and it wasn't what our brain saw. Okay, so it's a really important thing to understand. Everything in your frame, in our box that we're putting around our subject, is there to complement whatever the reason is we got the camera out in the first place. That's it. Yeah. Every single thing. Mm. Yeah. Sorry, that was a long-winded rant.
No, on that subject, Johnny, like your brain seeing things, I used to do a lot of real estate photography in this area, and often I'd shoot these houses and this does relate to landscape photography, by the way. So often I'd shoot these houses that have like water views, and they may be up on the hill, but they've got distant water views. And I'd go up there and I'd zoom in on the lens and I'd shoot it, and there's all these cables and like telephone lines and stuff in the way. And I shoot it and do the best. I edit it and I give it to the owner, and the owner's like, what are all those telephone lines and power cables in the way of my view? I said, well, they're there. No, they're not. I've never seen them before. So there we go. It's like, there's the water. Like, oh, there's nothing in the way. No, there's nothing in the way, but the camera's got it. And you couldn't edit that out because that was like illegal, because you couldn't sell a house that you show a view and then people go there and they're like, oh, what are all these telephone lines? And
what's that tree you photoshopped out and replaced with a shrub? Look at that view. What's that mountain you dropped into the scene back there, mate? That's not too good.
Yeah, right. So often we don't see those distracting things.
We don't. Yeah.
And it's and that's where live view is so great nowadays. Awesome. Looking at it on a live view and you're like, oh yeah, okay. look at that. There's a thing there. Let me move to the right or get low or get high or zoom in or whatever.
Something awesome about mirrorless cameras too, and I know not everyone's got a mirrorless camera, but when you've taken your photograph, being able to, if you're in a scene where your LCD isn't great or it's a little bit bright out, you can look into your electric viewfinder and zoom around on that photograph after you've taken it, and that's such a powerful tool with a mirrorless camera. I know not everyone has mirrorless, but I really love that about being able to review my photographs and really look at every single little detail. It's really nice. All right, got a question here from Kay regarding going back to a place and trying again. Do you have any tips if you are only going to a place once and can't go back? What sort of things would you ideally be looking for? So for me, particularly when I'm learning, and if it's a place I haven't gone to, never feel bad about taking your favorite shot you found off the internet. So if it's a place you've traveled to, and I've done this before, I did it with Horseshoe Bend. I got that shot. Every shot you've seen at Horseshoe Bend, Johnny went and created the exact same one, and I don't feel bad about it. I've got it, and it was a great experience. But then right after that, I got out my telephoto lens and I laid down on the edge and I shot down and picked out all these little details of things I've never seen before from Horseshoe Bend. So I think it's okay to go to a location and pick up your, whatever you want to say, the shot that you've seen, but it's all about then experimenting. So you've got one in the bag, you've got your keeper, you're happy with that one. If it's a place you're never going to get back to, that's fine. You've got it. You've done it. Unless you go there and you're like Shane-O and you just whip your camera out and take something that's no one's ever seen before, because I've seen Shane do that. Tom Marie or Zenith Beach, mate. I've seen you. I was like, man, where was that shot? The tide was way out.
Well, what you're saying then, John, I was just thinking about what I would do, and I would probably Google or reference that location and look at people's photographs. And usually, if a lot are looking similar, it's usually there's a reason why, and that composition is probably the best composition for that spot. And you would probably take that first, like you said, you would take it first and then have a look around, and because there would be a reason why so many photographers have taken that particular composition, especially if it's a really hard spot to shoot at.
Yeah, that's right. Or it's just that there's one element, single element.
Like
Horseshoe Bend.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a massive band with a rock in the middle of it. Like, there's only so much you can do with that location. And that I'm not saying don't think out of the box and try something different, but get that one in the bag. If it's a place you've spent all this money to get to, then you've got got that shot because it's the reason you're there. I'm getting a bit of feedback from someone. Not sure. But it's gone now. But and then play around with different lenses or trying a different composition or shooting, in portrait instead of landscape orientation. So that's what I would say. Got any other tips, Frank?
Interesting, Johnny, because we'll go back to Horseshoe Bend, because I was there with you and we went there sunset and a sunrise the next morning, and there's like 100 other people all standing on the edge of the cliff about to fall down. And it stressed me out, like watching all these people about to die. Like, it just I took the shot, like everyone else has got, with a wide angle, and bracketed it because of the harsh light, the sunrise or sunset.
I would have used filters, but mine ended up down Horseshoe Bend.
Yeah, they went down over the edge.
I heard about that. Yeah, and they'll brand new.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way we used it. There's a really good tip there, and it's about knowing your equipment before you get in the field or before you travel overseas to a location you spent lots of money to get to. Make sure you've tried your equipment out. That's really important.
Yeah, but for me, I have shared the shot that I took at Horseshoe Bend, but every time I've looked at it, I felt stressed, because that's how I felt when I was there, with all being in this epic location with 100 other people, everyone jostling to get the shot, like kind of like shouldering each other, to get your tripod legs are in between someone else's tripod legs because you're that close, and the cliff face is like 1 foot in front of you, and then you're dead. And it just stressed me out, and I didn't like it. Honestly, I don't know if I'd go there again, because I'd rather go somewhere else, Antelope Canyon or one of the other canyons that's less touristy, and just enjoy myself and just take my time and get the shots that I want. Anyway, that's, for me, it's all about the feeling, and not about getting that epic location and sharing it and having all these people like your photo and social. That's not me. It's about how do I feel about the image that I took? That's all that matters.
Yeah, good points, mate. Good points. But often we do end up in those type of places, and it's hard. It's and we do, and it's there's a really fine line between pigeonholing your creativity into something you've predetermined, and that's something that's taken me years to really get my head around. Okay, it's like we do all this planning, we do all this scouting, we get out there, and the shot we planned and found doesn't happen. So what do? We go home and we go, oh, it didn't happen again. Be negative about it, and that there's a really fine line between having everything sort of planned and being adaptable to what Mother Nature throws at you. There's a really fine line, and like I said before, as soon as you get to that place where the equipment is just like a shovel, you put it in the sand and you fill up a bucket and you've got the tools. As soon as you get your head around how those tools work, that was a really bad analogy, and I don't know why I thought of that. But as soon as you get used to those tools, it's just all the creativity just starts to flow, and that hairs on the back of your neck stand up when the light starts shining in, and it's all about just you and your camera and Mother Nature and just being in the moment and enjoying what's happening around you. And when you get to that place, it is so damn exciting. Photography just goes to the next level when you can start to get yourself to that place regularly, or figure out how you get yourself to that place. Brent,
yeah, and Johnny, you mentioned, and I think it really is important about preparing and doing the research and knowing your equipment and everything. But also on the contrary, I like to go to a place without looking at any images from that place, not knowing anything about it, and just everything's new. Don't know, and I get there and it's like everything's new. There's no composition, there's no preconceived ideas of what needs to be taken here. I love that, because that's when I get excited and I'm like, oh, look at that, and I'm like, oh yeah, 1 million people are taking it, but I haven't seen that yet. That's the first time I've seen it, and I'm going to take it,
and that really comes back to what personality you are. Like, are you someone who has to have a bit of an idea where they're going and what they're doing, and or are you a person whose creativity comes out the best? I've got a guy in the community gym, and we talk about scouting, and he says to me, Johnny, mate, it's not how I find my happy place. It's not how I find my creativity. I find it when I'm out walking my dog and I just carry my camera and bag and I find something that inspires me, and then I take a photograph of it. So and because you're at that place where it is all about the creativity side of photography, there's no like hard and fast rules. It's like how you get yourself to that place, your happy place, when you're finding compositions and scouting. It's different for everyone. It's a different part of the journey, and that's why it's so hard to teach. Like, you can teach the rules, you can talk about main subject and foreground and midground and how your tripod height works, but there's just some things about composition that it is purely trial and error. Anyway, I've got a question from Jane. Do you worry that the light will change if you are taking so long to look and observe? No, not really, because you've gone out there with, like I said, if you've gone out there a couple of hours before sunset, before the great light, so you've given yourself time to get to know the area, figure out the direction the sun's going to be, and all those things we spoke about before. So it takes away all that anxiety or that sense of, oh, we've got the light and it's here, and we got 5 minutes of great light, and now I've got to rush and try and take a photograph. Or in the inverse, if you're going out, like I mentioned earlier, if it's sunrise, you're out there the day before, just familiarizing yourself with that area. So I think you can get yourself to a place where you're not worried, because you're just watching the light, and as the light changes, that's part of something I say. It's like, okay, so when do I take the photograph? At what part of the sun's rise or sunset? What time? What's the best time to take it? And there really is no time. It's when you feel that the light is right for you to press the shutter, because for everyone it's different, right? For Shano, he might be out there shooting a mega long exposure in a bit of the blue hour later on after the sun's gone down, and he's going to rip a sky in the top of it and put some stars up there. For me, I often like the warm tones and the blue tones. So for sunrise, sometimes I'll shoot a little bit later, just before the sun's about to pop up. For Brent, I've seen some of his stuff at Tomaree. He's got his epic thing of zenith, and it's like really early on in the sunrise. The sun has just come up and got the clouds and all those pinky tones. So, there is a peak part of the light often, but there's no right or wrong when it comes to these things. It really comes back to that feeling. When are you feeling like it's right to press the shutter?
Yeah.
Shane, I've got a question for you.
Yeah, mate.
Where and what conditions really get you going? So like, I've noticed that you often like to get there when it's the lightning striking, like certain places, or Milky Way stuff, or surf things. Like, what really gets you going?
That's a hard. I don't know. I'm not sure really. Just feeling, I suppose.
Good light, mate.
Just light. It's just, I'm all when it says 100% high cloud, I'm frothing. Because I know what's going to happen. Yeah, you kind of know. So that's virtually a start. That sort of gets me amped. I don't know. That's a pretty hard question. I don't know, really. I just love landscape photography, really. Whether I come back with an image or don't come back, it's just the joy of being out in nature. And
for you, is it the chase? That's the
storms,
draw card, or
maybe,
the actual final image. Is it like? Because I know for me, it's often it's a chase. Like with my dingoes, photographing them, if it's too easy, I'll lose interest. It's got to be. There's got to be a challenge to the shot that you want to get.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the conditions will make it a challenge. Whether it be swell or But in regards to storms, I'll get pretty amped on a good chase.
Yeah. Well, I've seen you out there at like 2 a.m. photographing, and you still got to work the next day. So you're obviously pretty dedicated.
I don't mind staying up late. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, it's an interesting question to ask yourself: is what motivates you? Why are you out there doing it? And I think it's really good, and that can change. We're on a photography journey. Things change depending on where we are. I think it's a really nice question to ask yourself. What is it? And I know for me, Brent, and you know this as well. We've talked about it. It's just being in nature, slowing down, and just having time to not think about anything else except being present in that moment. And that really that's what, and lately it's been catching up with Shano and the crew, so that's been really nice as well. Being around those other creatives helps with that inspiration, particularly not feeling well recently. So all those things are reasons for me where I'm at in my photo journey that motivate me to get out there.
I think the why is really important, Johnny. Like talking about why you go out and shoot, because before you even get to a good composition and knowing all the composition rules and what makes your image speak to you and speak to others is knowing why you're out there in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And Shano had a good point before as well, is not being attached to the outcome. I don't know how many times we've been out there and it's been a bung sunrise or sunset, and that's okay. You got out there, had an early coffee, caught up, got in nature for a bit, and that leads back into that why. It's not always about the photograph or the epic light or what it is. And if you understand that, it's funny enough because we've sort of moved into creativity, but composition is purely creativity. It is. It's all about creativity, and all these things feed directly into that. Well, that's awesome. Well, I think I might share a few photos. And
good idea.
I'm just going to bring up my desktop. And that's not my desktop. That's my ugly face. We don't want that, man. Don't want to look at that. All right. So we should be looking at the desktop now. Mr. Brandt, can you see?
Hey, Johnny, maybe go back to your beautiful image there. And let's talk about the composition in your studio there.
Which? What? No. Let's talk about that. The main subject takes up too much of the foreground, mate.
You are the main point of interest, and you've got some blue and you've got some warm colours.
Yeah, I've got complementary colours happening in the background. This is the main subject.
Line, a big black thing in the middle. That's leading up to
the main subject. Yeah, it's not really. There's a big distracting element right in the middle of the frame. That's what I feel. All right. Let's start with this one. This is beautiful. So, guys, I'm just on 500 PX, and the reason being, I just wanted to pick a whole heap of random photographs that we haven't seen before. I tried to make that bigger, and that didn't really work, did it? Let's do this. See if that makes it. that. Oh, how's that? Look at that.
Beautiful.
Okay.
That is
Iceland.
beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. So it looks like the black sands of Iceland. Okay.
Iceland, man.
And this is, guys, this isn't about anything to do with these photographers. I haven't pre-chosen these images. These are just random ones we're going to look at. Okay. So we are talking about composition. Brent, do you want to start with this one, mate?
Yeah. So my eyes going around trying to find the one thing, and I think it's a peak, and then the reflection of the peak with the snow on it on the left.
Yep. Exactly.
For me, I think that's where my eye settles on that, and I'm just loving all the tones, like the blacks and the kind of the darker browns and the yellows in the kind of the midground, and then leading me up to that peak in the background there with those kind of stormy clouds, and I'm sure they've been dodged and burned and whatever, and then that reflection just kind of really adds to that.
Look at these.
Yeah, so the textures too, loving all those textures, and a little bit of blue in the kind of the top rightish middle.
Complementary colours of blue and yellow.
Yeah, a little bit of blue there because everything else is quite warm or neutral toned. But I think, and then also the blacks, love all the blacks. And I'm a huge black and white fan, monochrome. And this is getting closer to this is almost like a duotone, except for that blue in the sky. But yeah, just a stunning image. I mean, I could spend minutes like just studying this, especially if it was large. And I'm looking at it on half of a 13-inch laptop screen. Yeah, so and I don't have my glasses on. Maybe I should put them on. But so struggling a little bit. But
that's okay.
An amazing photo. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, all those things you said, I agree. So the reason why we're drawn to this area, and look at my funky little arrow tool. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's cool.
I just love doing this. Well, I could write my name. Spencer. And it changes colour. I love it. I've got it on hypercolour. But anyway, the reason why we're drawn to this area here and why you called that out, it's the brightest spot in the scene. So your eye is naturally drawn to something bright. Never alone, this is dominating the scene. And it's quite a big part up near the top. So our eye will start in here and, wind around these light areas and then wind up through here and then end up over here. And then from this side, the similar sort of thing. It's going to wind around in here, bounce off these light areas, and then wind up over to this point. Okay, so you've got these leading lines coming in from the corners naturally, and also this beautiful reflection. So we've got light and dark areas. Remember we spoke about that. They're things that can train our eye to our main subject or whatever, where our eye is going to settle. And the other thing is this cloud layer. It's really important to have something at the top of the scene that keeps your eye in the scene. So what can happen, if this photo had no sky in it, then the crop would be more like there, or maybe a little bit more breathing room. Okay, but not too much more. And the reason being is because you've got that blue sky. If you have too much blue sky, never alone it's going to be too much breathing space for this element, but your eye can get lost out the top of the frame. So that's something I always see. But definitely diagonal lines. Anything you want to add, Shana?
No, well, I'm drawn straight from the left-hand side of the frame.
Yep, up here.
That reflection draws me straight into the peaks.
Yep.
And then I instantly look up, like just the reflection draws me straight up to where the reflection's coming, like from where it's from.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this diagonal lines, and there's a little one here as well.
Yeah, so he's put this from the left hand side to lead your eye in to the reflection, and then it just draws me straight up.
Yeah,
like to look directly straight up to where the reflection's coming from. Like
the other thing here you can see. So we've got our background, okay, and then we've got our midground, and then we've got our foreground down in here. So you can, and this is what's really nice. When we start to break down compositions like this, we can start to slowly work out what this guy's done. Okay, we can go, you can see the leading lines from the corners. You can see the tripod height. He hasn't got a really low tripod height, and the reason being is because he's got quite high midground here. Okay, so if we had got our tripod down lower in the scene, and that was a funny looking arrow, what would happen is these hills here would then be up like this, and then we'd lose our background element. So your tripod height really it really affects this mid-ground area, okay? And it's really important to keep an eye on how high your tripod is, low or high, because it's going to affect everything in your scene as it layers back and gives you those layers and makes that depth through the scene. So that's really important.
and he's had to make that compromise, Johnny, because first thing you would have, like if he's gone lower, the reflection would be even more.
Yeah.
So, but then you have, like you said, the middle ground would block out the mountains.
That's right.
So he's had to compromise between still having the reflection and keeping the mountains.
And the other thing
big,
is,
like
yeah, definitely. So the other problem with lowering the seam, mate, is the reflection would start to come out over here like this.
That's right.
Okay, you're pushing the reflection out, and then you're interfering with these little areas here that's going to be broken up by this lovely reflection line. So you can see all these little things, come together to make a nice image. You're going to say something, Brent? Sorry, mate.
Sorry. I was going to say I'm really loving the angle of the light too. Just touching those little mid-ground mountains.
This way, you think?
The kind of the backlight on those mid-ground mountains. And I'm sure what he's done is he's darkened the shadows in those mid-ground mountains so that they're not too much of a distraction, so that your eye does go up to the peak in the background. Because if there's too much information there, too much attraction, your eye would stop and kind of settle in the those mid hills, whatever.
Yes.
So that's probably done in post too. He's photographed it and then he's looked at it. He's like, oh yeah, okay. I wondered, like that peak really attracted me while I was out there. I want to take away from the distractions in the mid ground so that the person viewing this does go from the reflection up to the peak.
There could be an argument for a portrait orientation here too. Because it takes me a while. It takes me a while to get to this peak, so there could be an argument that this. Oh, that was a really terrible arrow. Jeez, I've got to get better at my arrows, boys. But you could be an argument that there could be a portrait orientation here, just with this. So we've got the line, we're in through, we're up into here. So there could be an argument. So, and it's something when you're shooting compositions. I'm getting a little bit of feedback from someone. Sorry, I don't know who it was, but I think it's gone now. There's something to remember is always take a landscape and a portrait orientation when you're out there. I always say it, take both orientations because you just never know. One might stand out over the other. It's funny when you get things home on the screen, how your view of that photograph changes. All right, that was good. See, we know compositions. Anyone? I didn't think we'd done this before, mate. All right, let's do this one. I want to do this one. Yeah. Actually, 500 pics is really good for this, Brent. Good recommendation.
It is, because you can see the pictures quite.
Shano, you want to take this one, mate? Do you want to start?
What they've done, I reckon, first thing is they've put people in the photograph to give scale. That's the first thing I would point out. Just to show how large that cave actually is. And then probably the light coming from the left-hand side reflecting into the cave. I think, it was, I don't know what I like about that photo.
It's interesting. So they've used the framing, right, of this.
Okay? And just the people for scale. I think it's just,
And without
to show.
This guy looks naked for some reason. I don't know what's going on with that guy. It looks cold. No, but one thing that I do like the soft light coming in, so it gives us dark and light and brings up all these textures over here. I do like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about this area of the photograph. I don't think that appeals to me, that area so much. I'm not 100% in love with this area of the photograph. Like, it's okay to have negative space or dead space, but that feels a little bit dead, that area, to me. The other thing that I think is weird, and this is, guys, I just want to remind you, this is nothing against this photographer. I don't know who this photographer is. We're not having a go. This is just purely our opinions of these compositions. So I just want to point that out. But for me, having these two people in it, I think it's too much. I wouldn't have put two people in it. My eye goes up here, it sort of comes in here, and I see this big, and I see this, and I see this guy. I'm like, oh, he's cool. And then, I'm up there, and I'm just not sure where to settle. And I agree, excuse me, without this guy up here, because I really like the placement of this guy. Without this guy, this frame, it would be almost a nothing photograph, because you got no idea of scale. You're not sure what's going on over here. You know what I mean? I think that guy there, that makes this photograph into something that's really, really nice for me.
I would actually remove the dude on the left.
Yep, I would have.
And I would keep the one on the right.
Oh, you like this guy?
Because it's more, off center, like kind of rule of thirds, down bottom right, a little bit more.
Okay, that's right.
and because the light's coming from the left more, so
into this way. Yeah.
I don't know.
So the only reason I like this guy, and this is exactly what we're getting at with composition. It becomes subjective. Okay. So what I would have done is I would have taken a different crop and taken some more of this off here, because I think that doesn't work for me. I would have dodged this down, darkened this a little bit more. And for me, what my eye does, it goes from dark to light to light. So that's where my eye goes. If that guy wasn't there, my eye would start down here in this dark area and come up into this texture and then finish over here in this lighter area where this guy is. And that's the only reason I like that placement of that guy there.
Right.
Purely subjective, but that's and I might be wrong. That's okay, because composition is subjective. But I understand what Brent's saying is your light's all up coming on this side, it's coming into this direction, so it's feeding into that place as well. So but definitely, anyway, there you go. I've got to work out the keyboard shortcut for my little brush thing. I like it, but it's fun. You guys are missing out.
It's good.
Not having the brush
thing. It's good. No, it works.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Here we go. It's an interesting one.
Can I start?
You sure can. Go.
Repetition of shapes would be the first thing I would
like
say.
that.
Oh, and I just sorry, I went to go for my brush and I moved it. Oh no, what have I done, Shano? Oh, Johnny. Epic fail. Anyway, keep going. Hang on a sec.
Just
I didn't. You know what?
Hit escape, Johnny.
Yeah, I did. There we go. That's not the one, is it? So, sorry, my internet. I don't know what it is. You guys are taking up all my bandwidth. I think my internet's running slow as.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. All right, I'll bring it up. Yeah, go, Shana.
So I reckon, he would have waited for that yacht to be right in that right position to take that photo.
Yeah,
so that you have this repetition of shapes. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's kind of framed itself. So he's waited for that to. Yeah, it's just all about shapes, I think, with that photo.
It's interesting. What would you say? Yeah, I agree. I totally agree, Shano. This boat was over here like this. This boat was over here.
And even even the background mountains, like if you can kind of get your eye past that fog, they would all be same shape. Everything's triangles in that thing. Like it's all shapes. I think about that image.
Yep. Yeah. And interestingly enough,
you also got a leading line straight from the bottom.
Shadow.
You have the reflection leading you straight to where you want it. Exactly.
I got a bit carried away with my arrow then. Sorry.
And it's also the warm colors against the blue.
Yes.
You know, so the yacht that line up its sail and the hull against all the cooler colors.
Yeah, red against
definitely.
Else is cooler.
And there they're breaking all the rules because the main point of interest is right in the middle.
Yeah, but it works, right?
Which is okay. Symmetry. If it works, it works.
Yeah. That works. The other thing I would say about this is if this fog or cloud wasn't there, I think the crop would be different, because then you'd have this big mountain up here. And I'm not sure whether that would be too heavy on the photograph. I'm not sure whether you would then you'd want to take something off the top, maybe not that much, but somewhere up there, you'd probably take some off the top. But because that fog's there and we've got this other little point of interest, and it's only adding mood up to the top of the frame, I think it works okay. But without that fog, I probably would have cropped this a little bit different.
Yeah, and the light too.
Yeah,
like the light's only on the three subjects, like the three subjects in the photo.
Brightest thing in the frame is the main subject in the dead center.
Yeah.
And you could argue whether that boat is or these things are, but I would say together this make the main subject, the anchor point of the image. Those three things.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Yeah.
And that's maybe we should remind people watching this what composition actually is. It's the relationship between all the visual elements in the scene, right? So we've got those two icebergs, we've got the mountains, we've got the yacht, we've got the water, we've got the fog, and we've got the colors. So how do they all relate to each other? So they could have waited a few more seconds and that yacht could have been framed by that iceberg on the right.
Yeah, for sure.
But then maybe it wouldn't have been as strong. I don't know. It's one of those things.
Yeah. I think they've nailed it for this composition. Yeah. And I mean, they could have actually not had the boat there totally, and it still would have been a photograph for me, because we've got these beautiful textures and this blue, and I think it still would have worked as a photograph for me. Yeah.
But maybe two icebergs would be too much
Maybe it wouldn't have worked.
You know, like maybe if they're probably in a yacht also. So if they went to the right more and they had that one iceberg framed by the mountain in the background, that might be the shot too.
Yeah, you mean this one here? There's definitely a portrait composition probably in that area as well. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Looking things. All right, let's go here. Actually, here's let's do this one because we can. One thing I'll take this one. One thing I love about composition is minimalism. You'll notice oh, by the way, Ron said he just turned up, mate. So welcome, Ron. Just popped in.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, Ron.
Welcome, mate.
First thing I was thinking about, Johnny, just then, you took the words out of my mouth.
Did I? Oh, there you go. Great.
Yeah, minimalism.
I love the minimalism. Yeah. And looking at how misty this water is, it probably there was a bit of movement there this day, I would say, because it's quite misty even for a shoreline there. So there was a decent bit of movement or windy, and you can see just by a long exposure how it's calmed things down. One thing I do like about this is the way they've put this foreground diagonal lines. Diagonal lines work really, really well in composition. The other thing that's really important to me is the tripod height here, because if they had got higher in the scene, which is more than likely you couldn't have, you want to watch where your horizon line is intersecting your main subject. Okay, so you could imagine if the horizon line was up here, that would be the composition wouldn't be as strong. So just a simple thing like this tripod height and lowering that horizon line really, really helps. The other thing I like is the warm tones again. These warm tones and the cool processing. I actually like the negative space in the sky because it adds to the mood and the feel, and the way they've darkened down the top of the frame sort of holds you in the frame, even though it's a long exposure. So I actually don't mind that about it. One thing I would say, there's not a whole lot of depth to this image, and maybe that's okay. But I find, besides this area between here and here, once we get back here, there's not a whole lot of depth, and that might be okay. For this type of minimal photograph. Any other thoughts, boys, on this one?
I'm just liking the colour. Like they've kept that stormy. You can see it's a stormy look.
That muted
for
colour.
The photo. They've really they've used long exposure to perfect effect here. I think.
Brett?
Something I always question is if I went a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, would the image be more powerful? If I had more beach line, more leading line, and not going out of the frame a little bit, like more staying in the frame and then going up to those that jetty, would that be more powerful? Don't know.
I think this,
but maybe then you introduce all those rocks in the behind the jetty. Like maybe there's too many distracting elements.
Yeah, maybe they'll cramp for.
But something I do like about this is it's the snow on the beach and on the top of that building on the roof.
Yeah,
I really like that because that's unusual. For me that's okay. Maybe if you're in Iceland or England or whatever, it's normal. But for me, that's not normal.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'd be out there. Like if it's snowing on the beach, I'd be out there shooting because it's something that's
we don't see
like new for me.
And that's probably why you would compose this differently. And again, it's a creative choice. You like this foreground, while this is a nice, mid-ground element where we're going to end up. You would probably show more of this. So your composition might be more like, here's the beach, here's the horizon line, and our jetty's up here. And that's still a lovely frame as well. There's nothing wrong with that. But what you do introduce is texture and lightness into smoothness out to our main subject that has texture at the back. And I love how he's kept these muted tones. I think that works. So you can see.
And I'm guessing it's freezing out there. So I would want to remember how I felt when I was taking that photo.
Yeah. So you would have got the white balance that made it more blue, mate, probably.
I'd go for a swim afterwards for sure.
Because I'm pretty sure if you swam before you did your photo shoot, you'd be heading home, mate. So you wouldn't make it for the photo shoot.
Be frozen, I think, while looking at that photo. Yeah.
Very good. All right, let's find something a little bit different. This guy's putting his life at risk. Oh, he's an interesting photograph. This is nice. Let's have a look. Nice. All right.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to start, Brad, or?
Yeah, so again, the main point of interest, that island with the trees, looks like pine trees or something, fir trees.
Yep.
That's your main point of interest, and it's framed by the running water. So they would use a long exposure, maybe 30-second exposure, or 10 seconds, or 5 seconds, or something, to get that to frame your main point of interest. And there again, if you had your tripod a little bit lower, the island would blend into the background. So I think the tripod height's pretty good. Maybe even go a little higher if you could.
Yeah.
And then you got leading lines with the waterfall in the foreground leading up there.
So we've got these bringing us up to this main subject. And again, we've got this main subject in the center of the island here. Works really well.
And then for me, it's just the sky. I don't know. The sky, because it's harsh light compared to the softer light with the foreground.
So maybe it didn't need
just
so much.
That sky,
didn't need all this up here. And again, it leads to that point, like, because of the way it's cropped, there is room for us to get out the scene. And because the tones here are very close to this tone as well, it doesn't really pull us up in the top of the frame. So maybe a tighter crop would have been better. And what that does too, whenever you've got a gap here between the top of a mountain and the top of your frame, the higher that gap is between there, the lower these mountains look in the frame. So that's, if you crop this a bit tighter, and then we've got white, blue, white, blue, white, that might have been a stronger composition. And you could have, made these blue tones a little bit darker. One thing I'm picking up is I'd be questioning the shutter speed right here. And the reason being is it's so bright and white and blown out. So for me, if I could find the EXIF data of this photograph, I would know that if I like this area, and this is why when you're out there shooting long exposures like this, it's okay to take different shutter speeds, because in Photoshop, maybe I blended an area in that wasn't so long exposure for here, okay, but I really like this bit, or I really like this section, and I would mix those together. And the reason why I find this area a little distracting is because there's not much texture in there, and my paintbrush isn't working. I want it back. I've just got to get my paintbrush back. Sorry, guys. There's not a whole lot of texture there, and I find it's quite brightish. It sort of competes a little bit with the rest of the frame. So I would want to see a little bit more texture like this in here. That's just one little thing I picked up about it.
I would have done that, and I would have shot it vertical. I think more.
So cropped more out of it.
Yeah, I would have had more of the waterfall in the foreground.
Yeah,
I think.
More down, so facing your camera further down.
And that way you would use Johnny's sky, or crop this out as well, and get more foreground in.
Get more this foreground
and just different. Yeah, like Johnny said, different shutter speed. I think it just needs to show a bit more. Yeah, I think it's too long, just slightly too long.
Yeah, I feel like this area particularly. I mean, even this area you could see a little bit more texture, but interestingly enough,
that's a good tip, Johnny. I like that, because often when I'm out there, I want to get everything in one frame. But because the water's moving so much faster closer to the photographer than further away, you actually need maybe a 20-second exposure back around that island to get the water movement. But then you probably just need like a fifth of a second for the water falling. And that's a really good tip.
Yeah.
For when you're out there shooting,
yeah, for sure, man. And you can see we've broken the rules of thirds, right? So our main sort of subject, or where our eye sort of leads to, is right in the center. And when you've got portrait orientation, you can get away with that. You can have a main subject up here and a foreground element like this. It doesn't have to be off to the sides like this all the time, and it still works. So the rules are there.
And something else I would do in post with this is, because that island with the trees, it's more green than the background. There's more yellows in the background. I would enhance that difference a little more, just to make it pop.
It's a really good comment from your mate here. Read that one, Brett. Exactly.
There we go.
Yeah. So a bit more dodging and burning. You can see at this point and this point, these front trees, they do get lost between that background element, and maybe getting lower in the scene, and even. There's not much here. You couldn't frame it much higher. Then you'd start to intersect in the top of this line, which I think wouldn't be as strong unless you could get really low and get these trees up high. But it's not going to happen. So, and that's the thing. We talk about these things, but we're not at this location. We can't see 100% what's going on. But composition is it's all about give and take. We take a little bit of height from here, but it's going to give us a little bit less down here. So you got to remember, sometimes we are limited from where we can get, and we just do the best we can. And
I mean,
yeah. Sorry.
If the sky had unlimited time, you'd wait until a ray of light hit that island in the middle, and everything else was dark.
Or you wait for more fall colors because we don't get that here, and I want to see more fall colors. Yeah, not going to happen. Yeah. Good points, guys. Loving it. We had someone else turn up too, Brent, saying g'day.
Okay.
Or Brent's fan club's here today. Love it.
Okay.
Let's bring up this pano. It's interesting. Yeah. All right.
Very, very Max Reeve, if I say that. Very inspired by Max, I think.
Yeah, it does look a bit like his. I don't know whose it is, but
yeah.
I feel like there's a bit too much going on. Not only there's something this I would call that a distracting element for me. Whatever's going on there. And you can see it's half cut off. It's sort of half in the frame, half out of the frame. I actually love this part of the frame. I think for me, I would have taken on less of this frame. And maybe something like this even more. Obviously I can't crop it, but we still, maybe brought those flowers into the frame. But then we've got our light, because I find my eye, this bright area here is really, while I end up over here because it's still the brightest, I get drawn out over here.
Yeah. That light on the right-hand sides.
Just here.
Yeah, you're right. But it's distracting, I think.
Yeah. What do you think, Brent? What do you
think? And I think this is a good example of too much. Like less is more.
Yes.
Less things make a more powerful image.
Yep. Yeah. Not.
I mean, it's a beautiful piano, and if this was like printed like 10 feet wide and like quite tall on a wall, you'd really enjoy it. I suppose it depends on where they where they want it, and maybe the photographer is the same dude on the mountain. Like triggered
run out there in 20
camera.
seconds, mate.
Yeah,
with the timing on, but no, and I think this is for me anyway. I love this light. I love this cloud layer. It's beautiful. I like where he's placed himself. That's great. We've got these beams coming in. There's a beautiful texture here. I love this lichen. I love these flowers here in the foreground. I just think this area and this, it's a little bit too much. And there's some weird distortion. That is what I'd call a distracting element for me. It's sort of half in the frame. It's half out. It's a wee bit distorted. If I was going to keep this frame, I would have cloned all that out with something over here, in Photoshop, and got rid of that. So that's what I would call a distracting element. But look, epic location, beautiful mountains. What more could you ask for? Yeah. Oh, I forgot I've got this thing. I'll just turn it on and off. Hang on, what's it do? Oh, I can hit that. Oh, that doesn't work. I really got to learn my tools better. So I only just downloaded this app today, mate, so I haven't even had time to play with it. So yeah, very good. You want to do a couple more, guys? A couple more, and then we might. What are we coming up to? Oh, we're over an hour now anyway. Jeez, you guys talk a lot.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this one. This is cool. Just light and texture. Yeah, like this. Oh, that's not.
I've still got the comment there, Johnny. Can you take the comment off?
Oh yeah, sorry. I had my brush up. So.
There you go. All right,
we'll do a couple more, guys, and then we might call it a night because we.
I love the leading lines here. The winding river. That's beautiful. Leading me up.
I think it's a road, but
road. Is it a road?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a road, and it's leading you to the light.
Yep.
Need my glasses.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay. But see, it is very chaotic. So this is the reason why I actually chose this. One is we've got texture. So we've got chaos, rocks and lots of texture, and then smoothness and a leading line that takes us up into here. Then we finally get up into these clouds, and this holds us in the frame. While we've still got this section is
still framed by the two
beautiful window.
On the side too.
Yeah, sorry, Jono?
You're still framed by those two mountain ranges on the side, on each side.
Yes.
Can I just point something out? I would have somehow made that road come from right in the corner of the frame somehow.
Yeah, so you could have stepped forward and had your frame start like, well, not like that, but step forward a bit and had your frame maybe start. So the road comes into here like this.
Yeah, and if you got your tripod a bit higher too, the road would there'd be more separation between the.
There'd be more separation as it goes down through the valley.
Yeah. That's right. You would open up the midground. So raising the tripod opens up the midground. It's going to give this area more space, and we've got that space to play with because we could lose a bit of sky and still have nice sky. So yeah, we could definitely go up and bring this could have brought up into here. Then the sky would obviously be a lot less, and we'd still have this nice light and cloud. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Very good. I might just do one more and then we'll call it a night. Are you guys getting tired? I'm getting tired, I think.
Yeah, bedtime.
Old man syndrome, man. Seriously.
I've just had coffee. I'm right.
Did you? Yeah, you're going hard. Like, let's bring up this one.
High. Yeah,
I just wanted to bring up this one because I think, why did it do that? I clicked that one. I didn't do that. That wasn't me, man. Oh, this is. Let me just see if I can quickly get this one. I didn't actually scroll through those 500 pixels playing games with me. I just wanted to bring this up. Please bring this one up. Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't do that. It doesn't want me to look at that photograph. Oh, seriously. Here we go. Brent, you want to start with this one, mate?
Yeah, I think this one's all about the light for me.
It is.
That's just beautiful light. Hey? Wow.
It's just softness.
So, give me a second. I'm just taking it in. Got my glasses on this time.
You mean you've been doing this the whole time without glasses on, mate?
Yeah, I have.
That's been the problem.
It gives me a magical kind of mystical feeling.
Mm-hmm. So for me,
awesome.
While you're taking it in, I'll just talk. So for me, it's texture and it's also light and dark. So we've got light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, then light, then really light. So that's what happens to me. I don't really get near this area. I start down here and then I'm like bouncing around in between these till I finally end up to here. This beautiful, soft, Shano light, I'm going to call that.
It's all about atmosphere for me.
Atmosphere, good word. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's just being in that moment when that happens, I think.
Yep.
That person's going to remember that for a long time.
Yeah, and this beautiful diagonal play from this bright area in the foreground element to
tree.
This area up to here. Yeah.
And for some reason, my eye goes back to that tree in the bottom right.
Does it? Bounces back.
It goes back to there.
The light's hitting it really good too.
Yep, it's beautiful.
It's hitting the rock faces too on these other. It's just a beautiful shot. The light. It's all about the light, Brent.
Light and texture.
Yeah, epic.
Yeah.
I like this. I also like the height. I don't mind the height they chose for the horizon line here too. I think that's nice. It's not being intersected by this, back to big ground sort of area. Beautiful light. Yeah, it's great.
If this was happening, if I was there and this was happening, I'd get a couple of shots and then just
sit and watch
it, and just watch and just enjoy and just take it in.
Yeah, for sure, mate. For sure, I totally agree. Oh, that's been great, guys. Well, everyone, we're coming in. We're wrapping things up now. That's been great. Thanks for your time tonight. We went on a bit longer than I thought. Because you guys never stop talking, mate. It's unbelievable.
It's the host, I think.
Yeah, I know. I need to shut up a bit more and let you guys talk. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks, Shano. So, ShaneRussellPhotography.com and Brent Mail, ShareInspireCreate.com. And, of course, Johnny, that's 3colors.co. And this has been great. I've really enjoyed this, and I appreciate this. It's been a bit of a test run for me, these live streams. And just really, having people to come and support. It's been awesome. So I appreciate you guys jumping on. We'll have to do this again because I've enjoyed it. It's been good.
Yeah, I think the photo stuff is good. Talking about having photos up and stuff.
Yeah, it does. And drawing arrows. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, well, it works perfect. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys, that's it. We'll see you next time on the show. Of course, share this with your photography friends. Give it a like, give it a comment, share the photography love for us. That'd be much appreciated if you really enjoy this. And we'll see you in the next one. All right, we're out. Peace.
Peace out.